fantastic. That way we don't have to seem like we're talking in a stadium. But this is Richard Ross. He's was in youth ministry for a long time, decades and decades, and he's now a professor at Southwestern Seminary in Fort Worth, Texas, one of our Southern Baptist seminaries. And he just loves families and loves teenagers and loves helping families and parents in that capacity and helping them to learn how to follow Jesus and lead their teenagers to follow Jesus for a lifetime. So I'm not going to take too much of his time. If you want to know more about him, you just go find him later and ask him. He'll tell you his favorite color and all those fun things too. So but with that, we'll give it to Dr. Ross.
Wonderful to be with you. I'm looking forward to this. So just an interesting little personal question. Andrew and I are close friends. I've enjoyed knowing him for a while. So since we're friends, I think he could invite me to come most any time and I would come. So here's the question. Why did he invite me to come this year and not, let's say, next year? Why this year and not next year? The answer to that question, I'm embarrassed to say, it has to do with money, church money. You see, I can stand here today and it's not costing the church anything extra. I'm just here. If I come next year, though, you got to rent a walker, some oxygen bottles, you know. So they thought, why not just have him come while he's still vertical, and we don't even have to deal with the possibility that he's going to die of old age right in the middle of the sermon this morning. So I'm thankful to be here. I want to kick off by just asking you a thought question. Let me just wake up your brain. Maybe you've got enough caffeine to answer this one. If you were an atheist and you were still raising kids at home, what would be your number one goal in raising those kids? I'll repeat. If you were an atheist and you were raising kids at home, what would be your number one goal in raising those kids? Now, I'm not really talking about hoodlums. I'm not talking about people that are horribly immoral. I'm kind of talking about normal, I guess you would say middle-class people. Go to the same games you go to, just have normal jobs. They just believe there is no God. If you were one of those, what would you most want to see accomplished in the lives of your children? Now think that over a second. You might find it interesting to compare your thoughts with what the research actually says. The research actually says if you go to middle-class atheists and ask them, what do you want to see, what do you want to accomplish with your kids more than anything else, the number one answer they will give is, I want my kids to succeed. Whatever my kids take on in life, I want them to be successful. So we'll do whatever it takes. If they're struggling in a class, we're going to get them a tutor. If they're trying to learn a new sport, we may get them some extra lessons. I'm going to do whatever I can to help my kids succeed in life. Their second most common answer is, I want my kids to be reasonably happy. I think one reason that's such a popular answer right now is I think most people have gotten the word. Lots of young adults out there deeply depressed, lots of young adults even committing suicide. So I think an atheistic parent looking at that would say, you know, I want my kids to leave home and I want them to be reasonably happy with their lives. Their third most common answer is, I want my kids to be upright. I think atheists probably would use different words than you and I in the church, but basically they're saying, I want my kids to be decent human beings. I don't want my daughter pregnant when she's 14. I don't want my high school son strung out on drugs. So basically, I'm trying to get these kids to, you know, act right. Okay, this is an interesting question to ask you. If an atheist would say, what I'm really working at is to help my kids get on in life, succeed with whatever they try. I want my kids to be reasonably happy with their lives, and I want my kids to be, you and I would say, moral. I want them to be upright. If an atheist would say those are my top three goals, the question is, if you're not an atheist, if you not only believe in God, but you actually have a relationship with Him through Christ, how does that change the answers? That's an interesting thing. You see, I think most of us here in the church would say, well, I want my kids to get on in life. I want them to be able to earn a living. I want them to be able to support themselves. I certainly don't want my kids so depressed they don't even want to stay alive. I don't want my kids living some kind of horrible, immoral life. So how would we say, what is our highest goal? I'm not holding a microphone, but if they had given me a handheld microphone, it would be very interesting for me to just start walking among you and just say, tell me, put into your words, what is your number one goal in rearing your kids? Now, this is what I think. This is just a supposition, but I think if I ask each of you that question, your words would be a little bit different from each other, but I think basically you would have very similar answers. Once again, your words would be unique to you, but I think the majority of you would say, Brother Richard, what I really want more than anything is I want to see my kids live lives that bring glory to God. I want my kids to live their adult lives in such a way that they just glorify God, that they make a difference for His kingdom. Well, in fact, when I said those words, a lot of you started doing this. And I think I'm pretty close to right saying that that's what you desire. Now, if I asked that at worship time, I think the answers would be a little bit more diverse. But I think the people that are here for Bible study, basically you would say, yep, that's pretty close to me. That matters more to me even then will my kids have a nice house someday or whatever else parents might wish. So if we have come pretty together on, I want my kids to live their lives for the glory of God, then what I really want to press you on is this. How does that desire that's inside you become the desire of your kids? See, it's one thing for dad or mom to say, I want my kid to live for the glory of God. And yet I've got this 14-year-old that's got an attitude right now. And so I'm asking myself, how does this kid ever come to say, what I want more for my life is to live for the glory of God? Now, maybe I could have impressed you. I don't know. Maybe I could have impressed you if I had gone by the seminary Friday where I teach and just loaded up a bunch of research journals and brought them to Kansas, maybe come in here this morning with a little wagon or a wheelbarrow or something and say, okay, people, there's the answer. We actually know how faith moves from one generation to the next. It's not a secret. It's not a mystery. We actually know how that happens. It's right here. But being the basic lazy person that I am and not wanting to haul all of that to Kansas, I decided I could travel with something that's a little bit simpler. Did you know this takes the place of that wagon load of research? This is just a piece of pipe. It's from Home Depot, my other religion. I asked the guys to cut this off for me because I wanted to make a point. If my faith as a dad or a mom, if my faith is going to move to my kids, my faith has to travel through something, you might say. When my son Clayton, he's our only living child, when my son Clayton was a teenager, that's when I started figuring this out. And sometimes I would even put one end of this pipe against my heart, and in front of some audience, I would pull teenage Clayton in and put his heart against this pipe, and then I could make the point. Something has got to move from my heart to the heart of my son if he's ever going to begin to have the same faith that I have. So the question is, then what is that? What is the pipeline that tends to carry our faith to our preschooler or our grade schooler or our teenager? The pipe is the relationship. It is the nature of the relationship that you have with one of your children that primarily is going to determine will they receive your faith or not. I'm not talking about how your spouse gets along with the kids. I'm not talking about how you're getting on with 1 and 3. I'm really talking about a particular child. It is your relationship with that one. It is the warmth the closeness of that relationship that primarily determines will they easily absorb your faith from you. If the relationship is strong, on average, kids grow up, they turn 18, full of the faith of that parent. But if parent and child drift apart, if that relationship gets cold, even though we greatly desire things for them spiritually, generally they turn 18 and faith is not a big deal in their lives at all. In fact, right now we're seeing about half of our high school graduates that grew up in church walk away from the church and the faith the rest of their lives. Now, I know to a degree, I know you're thinking right now, okay, Ross, that is interesting, but to be perfectly honest, this is not new information. Everybody knows if two people are close to each other, one's going to influence the other person more. Everybody knows that. Well, that's true. But in the home, the dynamic of that, the reality of that, the power of that is amplified 100-fold. I want to show you an illustration to make my point. I'm going to pretend I'm a high school boy, okay? I'm just going to pretend I'm a high school boy. I know many of you have preschoolers and children, but you'll understand the principle. Watch. Love my dad. He's a good man. Now, my dad, he's crazy busy. He's got a lot going on. But you know, sometimes I catch my dad changing his schedule just because he wants to be with me. I mean, on a Saturday morning, he might say, son, I've got so much to do today, but there's nobody on earth I'd rather be with than you. Why don't you just get in the truck and go with me? Let's get some time together. And you know, when me and my dad are together, we have a good time. We talk, we laugh. He listens to my ideas. I really enjoy being with my dad. Now, it's not perfect. I'm a kid, and okay, I do some things that are wrong. But you know, when I do something wrong, my dad, he just cooks up, you know, some punishment, something that would let me know I can't be doing that anymore. But he doesn't scream at me. He doesn't cuss at me. He doesn't make me feel like I'm that tall. He just gives me my punishment. We're right back to being friends again. I'm telling you, I love my dad. Okay, those two guys don't realize it, but there's a piece of plastic between their hearts. That dad is influencing his son in dramatic ways, primarily because their relationship is so strong. Now, let me just be a different high school boy. Let me be a different boy. Me and my dad, oh yeah, we used to be close. You know, when I was little, we'd go on those family vacations. Actually, those were a lot of fun. We'd pull into some little motel with a pool. Me and my dad, we'd be out there in that pool. We'd splashing each other. Those were great days. I don't know what happened. I'm a teenager. I'm crazy busy. My dad's crazy busy. To be perfectly honest, we hardly ever see each other. And when we are together, I can't explain it. It just seems like it gets loud most of the time. I don't know why. Well, some of it's my fault. You know, I do some things that are wrong. But I swear to you, when I do something that's wrong, I would rather my dad punish me, get it over with. I would rather do that than to have him screaming at me, hollering at me, making me feel terrible. Oh, yeah, I used to be close to my dad, but not anymore. In that regard, a pipe that used to be in place has gotten pulled loose. And when it gets pulled loose, what you end up with is a child or a teenager that has a piece of plastic stuck in their chest, but there's nothing on the other end. For a while, that child's getting nothing because you see the pipe continues doing what God created it to do. The pipe continues sucking, but for a while, it's just sucking air. But these kids will not leave that alone. I have been a youth leader, believe it or not, for 50 years. And I've seen this 1,000 times. When those kids turn about 12 or 13, they intuitively know they've lost some closeness in their lives, so they start looking for a way to make up for it. But the way they decide to make up for it is with friends. They're looking for that one or two or three closest little inner circle, and when they find their best buddies, thunk, they give them the pipe. Now, Houston, we have a problem. The pipe continues doing what God created it to do. It's still sucking in, but instead of sucking the faith of godly parents, now they're just pulling who knows what from their friends. Listen, the people that have the pipe have the influence. The people that have the pipe have the influence. When I give my heart to my best buds, whatever they say, whatever they think, that tends to go straight to my heart, not to my brain to critically evaluate. If they're my best buds, that is influencing my heart. So my daughter's sitting at supper and she pops off with some crazy idea about how things are. And I'm thinking, where on earth did she get an idea like that? Nobody has ever said that in this house. Well, the answer is probably that's what her friends said. And she has decided, based on her heart, that that is true. And she turns 18, goes off to university or military or something, and we never see her again in the church. So the issue is, how do you keep a heart connection with children so that your faith becomes their faith? There are many, many pieces of answers to that question. In the brief time that we have, though, I want to deal with two vital issues. Issues that I think are interesting to those of us in the church. The first issue I want to raise with you is discipline. Discipline is complicated. Anybody here this morning interested in not disciplining children? I don't think so. Some of our, I don't know what you want to call them, our progressive friends in Hollywood or something like that, they think they're so modern, today that they think discipline is old-fashioned. You ought to let a child do anything he or she wants to do. Well, how does that turn out? Those kids become monsters. We see them in the news. Why is it illogical to say, I will provide no discipline, I will provide no structure? It's because we're all born with a birth defect. That birth defect is called original sin. It's something that we pick up from Adam and Eve, and everybody gets it. So a child left to his or her own devices is going to drift in negative directions. The alternative is discipline. But the little illustration that I gave about the two high school boys, you could pick up from that, discipline handled poorly hurts heart connections, and yet we've got to discipline kids, so what's the solution? Well, there is a solution. You discipline your preschooler or your senior in high school the way God disciplines his children. And I promise you that's not just a Sunday school answer. That is practical. And I want to show you how practical it is. Let's watch God act like a father. The moment I want to take you to is God with the people of Israel at Mount Sinai. He has just given them the 10 Commandments. But in addition to the 10 Commandments, there were other pieces of the law that he gave. It was a little bit more complicated than just 10 statements. But he presented that to the people, and then God said, here's the deal. In fact, I don't know if you remember, actually God was saying a lot of this out loud from the top of the mountain initially, and it scared the people so badly that their knees were knocking, and they said, Moses, Moses, you go up there and get the instructions, and then you come and tell us. But initially God is literally saying, here's the plan. If you do what I just told you to do, I'm going to give you blessings. And then he said, and if you disobey what I just told you to do, I'm going to give you curses, blessings, curses. But God went a step further. He said, okay, if you obey me and I give you blessings, I'm going to tell you right now what the blessings will be. I'm going to do this and this and this. That's most of a chapter. And then God took a deep breath and he said, and if you disobey me, I'm going to go ahead and tell you the punishments you're going to get, the curses. And he lists them. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And then in essence, he said, go live your life. Did you know that's brilliant parenting? Whether you're talking to a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old, the process is exactly the same. You get that child in front of you on some issue that's causing drama and stress. In other words, it's causing problems. If you've got an issue going on like that, you stop the drama and you just sit them down and you say, listen, do you understand what I'm telling you you have to do? Or do you understand what I'm telling you that you can't do? Now, you're not asking them to agree with you at this point. You're not asking for agreement, but you are making sure that they understand what you're saying they have to do, because you don't want any question about that. Now, and they may grudgingly say, well, I don't think you're right, or I'm not agreeing with you, but what you're telling me is I have to do X, Y, Z. When they will agree with you on what you've told them, then you're ready to continue. You say, okay, good. Now you know what I'm telling you you have to do. Here's the deal. If you do what I'm telling you to do, I know which store in Wichita you really like. You and I are going to end up in that store, and something nice is going to happen to you. This is not a bribe. This is simply my way of saying I appreciate your cooperation. I appreciate you doing what I told you to do. But if you disobey me on this matter, if you are doing the opposite of what I'm telling you to do, I'm tired of drama. I'm not going to shout. I'm not going to jump around. All I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a punishment. And the punishment is going to be, and you literally tell them exactly what that is. Then you kind of back off and say, okay, your decision. I know most of you don't have a 16-year-old daughter, but let's just use that as an illustration. What if you have a 16-year-old daughter and she's moving right up on getting her final driver's license, and you know there's going to be trouble? Because in her little mind, she thinks, if I'm mature enough to have a final driver's license, then I'm mature enough not to pay attention to a silly family curfew. That's what she thinks. So you know there's going to be drama on this issue. So to head that off, you sit her down, and once again, you make sure you make sure she knows what you're telling her she has to do. In other words, you make sure she understands what the curfew is. Then you say, hey, we know you think we're Neanderthals. You think we're cave people. We don't understand the modern world. That's okay. This isn't a popularity contest. The fact of the matter is, you think you can drive your cute little sports car on the outskirts of Wichita at 1 o'clock in the morning, cute little girl like you, and you think nothing could possibly go wrong. We know better than that. Wichita isn't the worst town on earth, but we have crazy, perverted people here. If they find you out, they could do unspeakable things to you. We know that. You don't know that. So our curfew stands. Now, if you make it in on time several weekends in a row, you and I are going to be sitting in front of the computer on Amazon, and something very nice is going to show up on our front porch. Our way of saying thank you, appreciate the cooperation. But if you pull in here late, no drama, nobody's going to raise their voice, but I want to tell you right now how I'm going to punish you. And you tell her. Okay, what if she does pretty good for a couple of weeks? Comes in on time. But on the third weekend, she's out with older girls. They don't even have a curfew, and she doesn't want to be the baby that has to come in early. So she just decides, I don't care what. I'm not going to embarrass myself. I'm staying out. So you and your spouse, you're sitting on the couch at home and you're scared. She's late. Every time you hear a siren in the distance, it makes you jump. Finally, she walks in. Now that you can see she's alive, now you want to kill her. See, this is very logical. Oh, you're alive? I think I'm going to kill you. And you jump off that couch. and you're about to say some bad words, but at the last possible moment you go, wait, that tall, homely speaker we had, what did he say? What? You kind of collect your thoughts, and then you walk up and say, listen, we told you precisely what would happen if you broke curfew. You've disrespected us. You've put yourself in danger. You get the punishment, I promise you. I want your cell phone in this hand. I want your car keys in this hand. You'll not see either of these for 2 full weeks. 2 weeks. What's she going to do? She's going to go to her bedroom and shut the door. The question is, what is she doing in that bedroom? This is what I've learned after decades of watching. What she's spending most of her time in that bedroom doing is getting mad at herself because she starts thinking of all the ways it's going to mess up her life to have no phone and no car keys for 2 weeks. And she just starts thinking, oh no, that girl that's trying to steal my boyfriend, now my friends can't even warn me, oh no. She just starts figuring out all of the ways that her bad decision is going to foul up her life. Do you know why she's able to think about how dumb this decision is? Because she's not thinking about you and what a wretched parent you are, which is what the teenagers mostly think about when your way of dealing with their bad behavior is throwing a fit. If y'all just have this big, huge blow up and you are just going off emotionally, and that's pretty well how you deal with the thing, when those kids get away from you, they are just preoccupied with, that woman is insane. She is crazy. Why would she ever? You're the deal. But when you calmly take their behavior and say something very nice is about to happen to you or something really unpleasant is about to happen to you, when you're just calmly doing whatever you told them you were going to do, you're not the issue. The issue is their dumb behavior. Now, somebody here this morning might have a very strong-willed child, and you might be thinking, okay, Doc, I kind of see the point that you're making, but I've got this 15-year-old son, and he is very strong-willed, and when I take something away from him, I know exactly what he's going to say. He's going to stick his jaw out, and he's going to say, I don't care, take it away from me. Doesn't bother me. I'm going to do whatever I want. Okay, you stay calm. You don't blow up. But you just raise the stakes. You say, oh, okay, that didn't seem to bother you that much. You know, the next time you disobey me on that issue, I'm doubling the punishment. And if he acts out again, you do exactly what you said you were going to do. You're deciding at the end of the day, I am going to win this. You see, eventually that kid now is standing in his bedroom. There is nothing at all in his bedroom that's left. He can't go out 7 nights of the week. His only form of entertainment is watching Fox News with his parents. And finally he says, you know, this is not really working. I have no life left. And he probably will start listening to what you're saying. Now, I made up the story of the driver's license, of course. How about a true story? True story. So Clayton was in high school. I was and am a professor at the seminary. And one of my seminary students wanted to honor me with a gift. Wonderful thing for students to do. Well, this guy happened to be a woodworker, and he decided to make me something. And I don't know how he did this. I guess you do this on a lathe. I don't know. But he took some hardwood and made a boomerang, not a toy. I mean, this was a big, beautiful, glistening thing. When he gave that to me, he said, hey, Doc, I know you have a son, and I just thought the two of you might enjoy this. I'm telling you, I know what I'm doing. This thing will really fly. Well, I go home and I go, hey, Clayton, dude says this thing will really go. Might be fun. Let's go. So we went up to the junior college near our house. Big open field, and we are throwing that boomerang. I mean, I think we could throw it the length of a football field, and that thing would circle around and come back. We were just having fun. That's the point. We were having fun. 1 week later, only 1 week later, Saturday morning, Clayton did wrong. He did something I told him he couldn't do. And when I busted him, I told him, I said, Clayton, this is so out of character for you, but I'm not going to go back on my word. I told you what I would do, and I told him his punishment. He was not impressed. He went to his bedroom and he shut the door. 30 minutes later, he came out of his bedroom. Now, by that time, I was reading the newspaper. Do y'all remember those? They were about this tall, about this wide. I was actually reading one of those, and he walked up to me. Hey, Dad, what are you doing? I'm reading the newspaper. What do you have to do right now? Well, I've got things to do today, but I don't guess there's anything I have to do right now. Let's go back up to the college and throw that boomerang. That was fun. Okay, I admit, I'm a professor. I was analyzing the situation. I thought, I busted this kid 30 minutes ago and he was not impressed. Why in half an hour is he wanting to have quality time with dear old Dad? Why does he want to be with me? Do you know what the answer to that question is? Nothing had happened to the pipe. I simply gave him his punishment, did it without emotion. He wasn't impressed, but in his bedroom, I'm sure he spent time thinking, well, it's my fault. He told me exactly what he was going to do. I was not the issue. And most importantly, by me not blowing up, hollering at him, putting him down, I didn't do anything to pull that pipe out of his chest. I want to show you something. It would be very normal in a conference world, it would be very normal for a speaker to pause and say, now, we've covered several things. Who has a question? Who has a comment? That would be a normal thing. So what if I did that? What if I paused right now and just said, who has something you'd like to say or something what if you just raised your hand? And what if you said, Brother Ross, Pastor, different people have been announcing today. We were actually kind of looking forward to the Sunday. I think I'm speaking for the people around me. I don't think we've heard anything interesting this morning at all. What if it made me furious that you would say something critical about me in front of this? What if it just made me so mad that I came to an empty chair right in front of you and I leaned that chair over and got right in your face and I'm just hollering at you, storm out the back door? Poor Pastor Tim comes up and says, oh, people, we could have never imagined him doing that. We are so embarrassed. But sorry to say, that's the only program, we really had for 9:30. So I guess you can just relax for a few moments before worship. So what if you just came out in the hallway and just accidentally, you and I ran into each other out there? So here's my question. Would that stunt I pulled in here in front of these people, would that stunt affect how you were feeling about me outside? Of course. In fact, some of you would say, I'll never feel the same about you ever. Okay, isn't it interesting that a person hollering in your face one time, and you would say that's enough to affect our relationship? But you see, at home, it's generally not one time. It could be hundreds or thousands of times. This is what I'm trying to teach you. You have to deal with their behavior. If you don't, they're going to become a monster. But you do that the way God does it in Scripture with blessings and curses. You are saying good things happen to people that obey and bad things happen to people that don't. And by dealing with their behavior that way, you never have to do those assaulting kinds of things that tend to weaken the relationship. I'm not trying to overpromise, but I think a whole bunch of you could be standing on your driveway with an 18-year-old or maybe even a 22-year-old, and they're putting their stuff in a trailer and they are about to drive away to start their life somewhere else. And you could stand there and say, by the grace of God, I have a heart connection with this one. by the grace of God, we are connected at the heart. And even though now we're going to live in different towns, that relationship is still going to be there, and hopefully my influence will continue. That is what I wish for each of you. Now, if discipline is one issue, I do want to deal with one other thing in the minutes that we have. What is, to use our analogy, what is the super glue that makes it so hard for a pipe to get pulled out of your chest? What's that super glue? I'll tell you. It is using your words to bless and encourage and build up your children. And again, I'm talking equally about encouraging and building up a preschooler or encouraging and building up a junior in high school. It's exactly the same thing. What I have discovered being in a different church every Sunday morning, what I've discovered is if I ever ask any audience, how many of you think being positive with your kids, pointing out good things in your kids, how many think your words of building your kids up could be an important part of Christian parenting? It doesn't matter what audience, it doesn't matter what state I'm in, every hand would go up. But what if I ask the question, how many of you can remember over the last 7 days, how many of you can remember looking square in the face of a child and pointing out something in them that is good, pointing out something in them that is worthwhile or positive? How many of you can pull up a little video of you specifically blessing and encouraging one of your children? If I ask that question, the hands generally come down. What I'm trying to say is this. Every single one of us know that is important. But I think in the busyness of family life, sometimes we just forget. The fact of the matter is we're all moving fast today. We just are. At home, we don't have a lot of free time. At home, it's just move. And I wouldn't say this in front of the children of the church, but the fact of the matter is having children is just stressful. It just is. In the best of situations, kids just add a little underlying stress. So you put two and two together, and if we're not careful, we're just moving, but we just get in the habit of this litany of stop, don't do that, put that down, don't hit your brother, And if we ever stopped and just backed up and listened to ourselves, what we would figure out is negative. And where in the midst of that did I say anything that was positive? Some kids get that. Some kids get the positive from mom and dad. Some do. At my church in Fort Worth, occasionally before youth group, I might have a 9th grade boy walk up. You know, they have to be a little bit cool, you know. But if a 9th grader walks up to me, he might say, "So, Mr. Richard, you know, my dad was like talking to me, and I don't know, he said he thinks I'm kind of like a good guy, and he thinks I can do some stuff someday. He says he hires people at work, and he said he's really good at it. And he said, I don't know, I'm just a kid, but he said he can see some stuff in me that's just like what he's looking for at work. I don't know, I thought that was kind of good that he said that, Mr. Richard. And you know, our church isn't the smallest church, and my dad was saying, you know, when you people finally figure out that he's my dad, he said he really likes that because he's proud to be known as my father. And I don't know, Mr. Richard, I just thought it was really cool that my dad would say all that stuff. I cannot begin to say to you how important words like that are in cementing a heart connection. Now, if they're a teenager, you may get rolling eyes when you're saying it. Who knows how they're reacting on the outside? But I'm telling you, that goes straight to their heart on the inside. I don't know any of your stories, of course. And it could be that several of you would say, Brother Ross, to be perfectly honest, the family I grew up in was not a touchy-feely kind of family. The family I grew up in, I don't think people were saying very much positive to each other. In fact, I don't remember growing up people saying much of anything to me about me being a good person. So it's hard for me to remember to turn around and do that for my kids. If that's your history, if that's your story, I want to give you an encouragement. Men and women, just bravely say, it stops with me. Why would I pass this down yet another generation? Why would I withhold from my kids words that would have meant so much to me? I'm a man, so let me just speak from my perspective. I'll bet you 2 or 3 of you men would say, I don't remember my dad ever saying he was proud of me growing up. And if he had said it one time, it would have mattered a lot. I can grieve with you about that if you missed out on that. But again, why would we transfer that then another generation into the future? Adult habits die hard. I'm the first to acknowledge it's just hard to stop what has been habitual for us. But I'm really encouraging you, if you're seeing any need in what I'm saying at all, I'm really encouraging you to say, I am going to do what it takes to break a habit, to stop the litany of stop, negative, and occasionally get in the face of a child and let them know I see wonderful things in them. My mother understood this so well. She's in glory, of course. But when I was 13, oh my goodness, I was almost this tall. I weighed 100 pounds less. My little arms and legs were like sticks. I'm not exaggerating. I was like 6'4" sticks. We had no acne medications back then at all. So the acne on my face were huge red. I'd say the red things on my face were as big as nickels. Solid red. I was mortified. That skinny, I couldn't play sports. It was just a bad year. But my mother intuitively knew I needed something positive. She, some days, would be at the front door of our house. She would hold my shoulders and she would say, Richard, listen to me. I'm your mother. There's good in you. I think you can do something someday. I want you to know I'm proud of you. Now you go have a good day. Maybe later Andrew will tell you I'm not a total egomaniac. I think God has spared me from that. Please do not misunderstand what I'm about to say. Please don't misunderstand. I'm just trying to make a point. When I'm standing in front of the U.S. Capitol and I am preaching to 800,000 people, do you think my ability to speak confidently to 800,000 people has anything to do with a mother that would say, well, I believe in you. I think you can do something. You write 25 books for the youth leaders. Would you ever write your first book if you couldn't hear ringing in your ear, you can do it? Now, today, Richard Ross and his mother are not the issue. The issue is each of you guys and your children. And I just wonder, are they going to leave your home with their heart full and confident because mom and dad kept pointing out good in me, what's worthwhile in me? Because adult habits die so hard, I would say you gotta act on this before you forget. I would say this afternoon, you just say, I'm going to begin the process. One child at a time, I'm going to find moments that I can bless them and encourage them. If you do, if you make that your practice, and if you discipline the way God disciplines, I honestly think you're going to help them finish growing up connected to your heart. And even though there are no guarantees in parenting, if they are connected to you at the heart, the high probability is that they're going to go live their adult lives for the glory of God. And that's the whole point to all of this. Can I pray for you in that regard? In Big Church, in the worship time, I'm going to kind of give you the rest of the story. This is part A. We'll do part B in worship. It's been a joy to be with you. Lord Jesus, I just pray that you would be glorified this morning. I pray that you would do and say things in our midst that would actually make a difference. Father, the children of this church, what a potential they represent. What difference they could make in their kingdom, in your kingdom, for your glory. Lord Jesus, anything I have said this morning that is consistent with your word, I pray it would be drilled into our hearts. I pray that it would quickly become part of our parenting. To this end, I pray in your name. Amen and amen. We'll see you in just a moment.